First of all, tell us about your first memories of Chessington World of Adventures.
So Chessington World of Adventures for me was when I was about 18 years old, and I was really an enthusiast at that point, and it was what I wanted to do for my living. And I came to Chessington and it was such a different atmosphere. It was such a different feeling where you had the animals and you had the rides, and all the rides were kind of working towards being incorporated with those animals. And to me, it just felt like a really beautiful, lush place to come. And certainly from before, where Alton Towers was my sort of stomping ground, it was a different way to look at theme park design, so it really inspired me.
What are the biggest changes you've seen here? Obviously one of them you're a bit responsible for and is just over your shoulder.
We're really looking at animal conservation now. One of the things at Chessington, certainly with Land of the Tiger, that we wanted to do was about these endangered animals that, you know, these have been bred and brought up in captivities, and they're from Carmarthen, and they grew up next to a wooden roller coaster. So we wanted to give them a huge amount of space to be able to walk around, engage with the guests if they want to, but also have fun and feel at home. As well, with all the theming that goes on, we've got the ability with the zoo team to talk about the endangered species, talk about the work that's going on in the countries that these guys are from, to hopefully keep them around for future generations. And that's one of the big things that we take very seriously here at Chessington. And anytime we do a new investment of a ride, we also make sure that animals play a big piece at the heart of it, and they come first, primarily before the guest experience, which for me is quite a strange thing to do. I've switched around. Like, normally the guest is number one, the animals are number one, and then if the animals are well looked after, then the guests are having a great time too.
Obviously bears are very aggressive, just like our tigers, so they will put on a really big fight. Now the ways that we feed them, we sort of differ every single day. We actually pulse it as a form of refreshment.
So Tiger Rock, Gruffalo River Ride, and now Room on the Broom, three existing attractions that have been re-themed. Do you find it's a harder process, re-theming something or starting a new design from scratch, and which would you prefer?
Do you know what? It's an interesting question, because I've done them all. I've built attractions like Oblivion at Gardaland from kind of scratch and ground up, as well as Kung Fu Panda and Peppa Pig at Gardaland. At Chessington, there is no real difference. It's the same sort of way that you approach it. Okay, you've got the building footprint, and you have the shape and the spaces that you've got to work into. But as an entertainment designer, that doesn't matter. You've just got to look at those spaces from a creative point of view and tell new stories. It's just a different challenge, and each individual problem has its unique thing. A lot of people look at a blank piece of paper and are quite intimidated that they've got to start from nothing. But even with something like the Gruffalo or Room on the Broom, you're starting from nothing again. So it's pretty much the same.
That's quite interesting. I have a question that's just vanished from my head. Okay, yeah. So the tigers at Tiger Rock, they've been here about 18 months now. Yeah. I remember initially they were chasing the boats all the time. They don't seem to do that quite so much. Yeah. Are they still happy? Have any issues with them, or all going well?
So the tigers here have been absolutely great. I think it's because, again, they've been born and raised in captivity, and they were born up with a roller coaster. So if you look behind you quickly at the top there, the one going across the top of the bridge at the moment, what we found is that now the tigers have been here for a year, they've actually got their own zones that they like to be in. So they're using the trails much more now than they did when they first came here. They really enjoy walking around in the circle that we've created for them. And that was important for me as a design perspective, that all of the enclosures here for the tigers are connected. So enclosure A we can lock off if we want to, but it's connected to enclosure B, and it's connected to enclosure C. And what you don't see off site is at the bottom of enclosure B is another gate. That gate runs around a trail that goes all the way through behind the tiger's head and comes into C. If you look through the teeth at the moment, you can see a horizontal piece of metal. That's actually the tiger trail. You may see that tiger go through there. So they can keep running around in a circle. They can go anywhere they want to be. We don't stop them from going anywhere that they don't want to be. And we're just seeing them having a great time. And as far as chasing their boats, they still do it depending what you're wearing.
Okay.
If you've got one of those kind of Eskimo hoodies on, which is quite fluffy, they'll chase the boat. And they generally love doing it. One of the things about having animals in captivity is you've got to entertain them. They're very curious. We get chili powder and we make trails around the enclosure because it makes them quite interested. We put meat on different climbing trails for them to look at. But also the guests, they love interacting with the guests and they're very comfortable around guests, and depending on who you are, what you're wearing and how you act with them, they'll normally interact with you. They're great to have here and they're very at home.
Do you think there's a better example in the UK theme park wise of so much diversity when it comes to different rides and attractions? Obviously this is Britain's first ever theme park. I still find it amazing just how fresh and innovative you're keeping everything here.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I get asked a lot, what's my favourite ride? What's my favourite roller coaster? What's my favourite theme park? And I can quite honestly say I don't really have one, because each individual theme park you go to in the world, either in Europe or you go to Efteling, or you go to Europa, or you go to Thorpe Park, Alton Towers or Chessington, every single one has its own unique atmosphere. Every single one has its own selection of rides and experiences to do. How the designers in the theme parks approach those different challenges fascinates me, and so I don't really have one that I would go, oh yeah, that's obviously the best because of X, Y, Z, because actually it's the guests, it's the staff, and it's the rides, and it's the people that make it. What we do have here at Chessington that's great is we've got animals and theme park kind of mixing together, and you know, we've managed to do it in a way that's good for the animal, also good for the guests. And I say we can keep that conservation thing going with them too. One of the things that we did add in around Tiger Rock, which you can see, which we got extra money for, was I'm a big advocate of disability and guests that have hearing difficulties or sight problems or in a wheelchair. It's one of the things as a designer, and that we did on Room on the Broom as well, that we really wanted to pay attention to. So we managed to get extra funding to be able to put the audio points in, which you can see around, which have got tiger print on them, which allows guests that can't read the signage, or the learning disabilities, or they're blind, that they can have ability to press a button, and they also get to engage with the animal, understand the animal, and learn a bit more about them. And I think that sort of stuff's really, really important. And it's also the reason why we put the huge tent in there, so the zoo team can also do that engagement with the guests. Cool. It's very critically important what we do.
Do you still get a real buzz seeing all these, there's lots of families and kids here today clearly having an amazing time? Do you still get a lot of satisfaction out of that?
It's why it's ever since I was when I was wanted to be a kid, it's what it do, it's what drives, it's what gets me up in the morning. Obviously I do the horror stuff as well, and being able to influence people's lives from an emotional aspect, as well as families having fun, making great memories with each other, they'll go home and remember this day for the rest of their lives. When time gets bad, when school gets bad, when the weather's bad, you can think back going, remember that time I had with my mum and dad at Chessington Adventures and we laughed so much when we got wet on the ride because this happened. That means everything to me. So yeah, absolutely, yeah. Cool. I'll never get bored of it.
If someone wants to work for a company such as Merlin Magic Making and do a job like yours, what advice would you give them?
So again, it's about putting yourself out there. It's about being confident in your abilities. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. An idea is an idea. All you've just got to do is develop your skills in order to be able to present that idea to people that can listen. So, you know, learn Photoshop, and if you can't afford Photoshop, there's a free one online called GIMP, and it's a photo editing software. And you know, learn SketchUp. I praise SketchUp so many times from an attraction designer. I used it for this, I used it for Room on the Broom, and I've used it for all of my scare attractions. It's a real good way to understand spaces. Learn all of that. Go to events like ScareCon. Talk to people, email people, get involved, go and find the companies that do this, watch YouTube videos, take in all the information that you can possibly do. Most of all, have confidence in your own ability, have confidence in yourself, take support from those people around it, and try to push off all the negative comments that will come your way when they say you can't do it. Because anyone watching out there, that was said to me, you can do it, just believe in yourself.